Is the Scottish Government the most incompetent in the world? Judge for yourself. Just listen to this. The Scottish Government had a problem to solve. The problem was there were some areas, for example, in the city centre in Edinburgh, where there were lots of short-term lets on Airbnb, for example, where landlords would let out the whole flat for 1 week to one lot of holiday makers, the next week to another lot of holiday makers. And some of the residents in these blocks, they didn't like that. Too much noise, too many people coming and going. So the government decided, right, let's do something about it. So they did. They introduced a licensing scheme. So if there's a block with lots of residents and they don't want one of the flats to become short-term lets, they can apply to the council. The council might refuse a license for that particular flat in that particular block, in that particular city centre. Okay, fine. To solve a problem with short-term lets in certain small areas. Right, let's have a look how this regulation's working out for me and my family. Now, we've done house swaps for years. It's a good way to go on holiday. It's very cheap. You go and live in someone else's house. They come and live in your house. No money changes hands, and everyone is happy. So basically every summer we go somewhere for 2 weeks, but wherever we go, our arrangement means that a family comes to Edinburgh for 2 weeks. So surely for Scottish tourism, this is brilliant. We'll cancel ourselves out. When we go somewhere else, we arrange for someone else to come and spend their money in Edinburgh. Often people who do house swaps, they only do house swaps. So if they couldn't do it in Edinburgh, well, they just wouldn't come to Edinburgh. They'd go to another city instead. And also what we're doing is we're effectively sort of providing a sort of holiday accommodation for a couple of weeks. So that's taking the pressure off these places where the holiday accommodation is a problem. So basically the Scottish Government and Edinburgh City Council should be giving me a medal for what I'm doing with house swaps. But instead they're doing this. So this year, at one point, it was looking like we were going to do a house swap with a family in Italy. And 8 people from Italy were going to come and live in our house for 2 weeks. Now, in order to do that, the Scottish Government says we would have to have a licence. Just to do a house swap where no money changes hands, just for 2 weeks a year, we need a licence. And you also need to do an electrical test, a gas test, a fire safety test, a Legionella risk assessment, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on and on. And then to pay for the licence, it will cost £120 per person. So to have the Italian family come and stay in our house, paying us nothing, would cost us £960 for a licence. So what the Scottish Government has done is it has killed house swaps in Scotland. As far as I'm aware, there is no other country in the world where the government has killed off the house swap scene like this. The Scottish Government loves to say how it's world leading in one area after another. Well, it's world leading in incompetence in this area, that's for sure. Now let's just imagine when the Scottish Government takes this same principle into other areas. Have you got some friends where you go around to their house for dinner sometimes? Sometimes they come round to your house for dinner. No money changes hands. You're a restaurant. You need a food hygiene certificate up in your window. You'll need a menu up by the door. It's the same principle. What if you take your son and his pal to football on a Monday, his dad takes them on a Wednesday? You're a taxi company. You need to get licensed. That's the thinking. I mean, this £960 that the Scottish Government would like to extract from us for this, I mean, well, it still would be awful, but maybe it wouldn't be quite so bad if you thought that money might be going to be spent on the NHS or schools. But you know where that money is going to be spent. That money is just going to be spent on bureaucracy, on paying inspectors to go around checking properties, etc., completely unnecessarily. So how can the Scottish Government be so incompetent? Well, first of all, there's the Greens. The Greens think anyone who owns a house is probably an evil capitalist in any case, so they deserve all they get. So you've got that force. Then you've got the SNP, and they're just plain and simple incompetent. They would like to make the world a better place. They've got no real vision for how to do that. So what they do is just make more and more little rules to control things more and more tightly. And they can't even do that intelligently. So I think, again, this is a case of a world-leading aspect of the Scottish Government is world-leading in incompetence. Now, quite often, I sometimes get the impression people have got the idea about the SNP Green government. They're sort of quite okay. They run the government run the country quite competently. I mean, they are morally degenerate, but they do sort of run the country okay. No, this is not true. They're morally degenerate and incompetent.